I have an absolutely crazy confession to make on today's video. I wash my hands after using the restroom. It's crazy to think how many people out there are willing to walk around with particles of like urine and like ash juice on their hands just because the sign tells them to please wash their hands. There's like a large group of people out there that feel like they shouldn't be told what to do, even if that means washing your hands. I mean, bare minimum, just pretend to wash your hands just so I can like have peace of mind to walk around in public. I don't know. It's kind of crazy the times that we live in. People just won't wash their hands. If there's a sign that says to wash their hands, it probably, if it wasn't there, they maybe would consider washing the ash juice off their hands, but I don't know. It's crazy. Anyways, let's get straight into today's video. I actually wanted to talk about more McFarlane news. We're getting some new DC Direct action figures based on the new Batman adventures. We're getting a Mr. Freeze, a variant on Batman. I believe it's like a silver outfit, and then we are getting Etrigan. Interestingly enough, about all of these figures, aside from the Batman, I think Etrigan as well as Mr. Freeze, they're actually pretty expensive out on the third-party marketplace. Like, I actually checked Amazon and eBay. Mr. Freeze, I think, was a little bit more affordable, but you're still looking to pay about like $40 to $50 depending on what condition you want him to be in. And then Etrigan, I believe, came with a 2-pack with a number of different accessories. And so far in the promotional images that I've seen up to this point, we don't really have a clear, concise idea of how many accessories are coming with these figures, but I'm just going to assume that they come at least bare minimum with the original accessories that the first released DC Direct action figures came with. What's interesting is the Etrigan figure is going for way more. I've seen it on eBay, with shipping and fees and everything, you're looking at paid close to about $100. So I will say, even though I think a lot of people are burnt out on the DC Direct line, I actually really commend McFarlane for deciding to reissue / re-release these figures. I think for the most part, they're just reissues or re-releases. Sometimes he may change a few things here and there on the figures, but for the most part, it's the exact same figure that you were getting back in the day. But it's cool. It's a nostalgic tug. And like I said, he's absolutely destroying the market with these reissues, because a lot of the time, as I mentioned previously, these figures are going for like astronomically high price points. They're probably like eBay sellers or flippers or scalpers, however you want to refer to these people as. They're absolutely panicking right now. They're trying to flip these figures as soon as they possibly can. They realize the end is nigh. These figures are about to, jump out on pre-order. The pre-orders will actually go live on April 10th, and I'm assuming that's when we'll get more a more clear picture on what exactly McFarlane is going to offer with each individual figure. As I said, I don't really keep track of the DC Direct line, especially for the animated series. I just don't love the articulation scheme. I like to get my figures into some crazy poses, and these figures just don't lend themselves to that. But if you guys are interested, definitely keep track of these figures. April 10th, I think these have a pretty good chance of selling out extremely quickly. As I said, these figures are going for really good prices on the third-party market, and so it's important to jump on them as soon as you possibly can. These are some great characters. They're going to continue to flesh out your DC Direct collection if you're starting new, or if you maybe some of these characters you missed out on the first time around, you can now pick these figures up. And this also kind of raises the question about when McFarlane actually finally loses the DC license, whether Mattel would decide to continue with the DC Direct line. I'm very curious to see that, because as time has gone by, I think even McFarlane has moved away from the DC Direct line a little bit. He's focused in more on his DC Multiverse line and his Collector's Edition line, and some of his 7-inch Page Punchers action figures. I think that's where the bulk of his attention for the most part has been. And I think the DC Direct line, he kind of threw to the wayside, which I think was kind of a big mistake on his side, because as I said, even though sometimes he was adding a few things here and there, for the most part, he was just reissuing figures. It was like the easiest cash grab, but he did it in a way that actually benefited the consumers, because there were quite a few fans out there that wanted some DC Direct action figures based on the animated series, whether that was the original Batman Adventures or the new Batman animated series. So it was very important for him to jump in on that early, and I think he kind of missed the boat a little bit, especially now that, you know, the rumors are that he's going to lose the DC license. It's just really interesting. I think I would have personally put a lot of effort into these reissues. It's probably much cheaper than like going into the lab, if you will. I'm using air quotations in case you guys are wondering, because yes, it's not a lab, but he goes into the lab and just kind of works on a new body mold. Or even when they're reusing a body mold, he still has to find a way to re-engineer the body mold to make it fit, you know, different characters. He has to worry about articulation. Can this figure pose upright? Does it look aesthetically pleasing? Is this a figure that people are going to want to put in their display? Whereas in the DC Direct line, there were already a bunch of displays or collections already essentially completed. They were just missing some holes, and then there were people that just genuinely wanted to jump in on the line because they missed the boat the first time around. So I think this is, like I said, a really quick, easy reissue, but also something that I think benefits the community as a whole. I think at the end of the day, I'm hoping that Mattel actually continues the DC Direct line. As I said, I personally have no attachment to these figures. I haven't really been picking them up. I don't plan on picking them up, but I think it's a really cool, nice touch from McFarlane to continue doing these reissues, even though, you know, the end is nigh, the end is right around the corner. We know that he's about to hand over the reins to Mattel, and even as sad as it is, I hope that Mattel continues it. And I really hope that Mattel continues some of these lines, or some of these sublines, I should say, whether that's you know, the DC Direct line. And I'm actually kind of hoping that they continue the Page Punchers line. Obviously not exactly what McFarlane was doing with the Page Punchers, because he was doing a 7-inch line. And most of us are going to assume that they're going back to the 6-inch scale or the 1/12 scale. So obviously they can't do a 1-for-1 ratio, but at least the concept, the idea of Page Punchers, I really like that idea, you know, giving us like comic book covers that are specific only to the Page Punchers line from McFarlane. He was actually giving us an entire comic book series with some of these waves, like issue 1 through 4 or 1 through 3. You know, each individual action figure got a very specific comic book, and you could actually finish like a small little mini run. I thought that was really cool from McFarlane. So I'm hoping that Mattel keeps some of that stuff around. I'm going to assume that some of the stuff is just going to fly out the window. Obviously, they're going to continue DC Multiverse, but in their own way. I don't know if they're going to want to continue the collector's edition line, you know, so on and so forth, but I would love to see some of the elements that McFarlane was actually applying to the action figures and to the lines. I would like to see Mattel actually continue with that. So only time will tell. This is just very much in the beginning. We're in the later stage where McFarlane is probably going to either ramp it up towards the end or just kind of fizzle out towards the end. Personally, I feel like he's going out with a bang, but maybe towards the end he just, you know, doesn't or loses a lot of interest in the DC multi or the DC line in general. Only time will tell. But if you guys are interested in these figures, I've gone completely off the rails here. April 10th, bug market. Make sure you guys are able to pick up your figures, pre-order them as soon as they go up. I'll probably save that conversation for a completely different video or kind of break down exactly what it is that we should expect from Mattel moving forward, what lines they're going to carry on from the McFarlane universe, and so on and so forth. Just kind of give you guys an overall, or I should say my personal overall take on how that transition is going to happen, because it's going to be very interesting. It's definitely very fascinating as we move closer to the end of the McFarlane era with the DC universe. It's definitely just kind of like getting the juices flowing, hopefully in a good way. Let's just put it that way. But anyways, if you guys enjoyed today's rambling style of content, make sure to stay tuned. We do this pretty consistently. I would say we're doing it, I don't know what, like on a daily basis. We're burnt out, but we absolutely love putting these type of videos together for you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to stay tuned, stay safe out there, and as always, make sure to enjoy the hobby. That's the most important part of all this. Make sure to just enjoy it, you know, play with your figures, pose them, photograph them, whatever it is that you're into, enjoy them, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.